Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Gentlemen, let me start with just a moment's history to give some context to my questions. When the tobacco industry discovered that its product was deadly, it responded to that news with a systematized program of denying that set of facts. The upshot for the tobacco industry was not great. It was found in federal court to have been engaged in massive fraud and was put under court order to cease its fraudulent behavior. At around the same time, the fossil fuel industry began to run into a similar problem regarding the effects of its product, and it picked up the tobacco industry scheme kind of where it left off, including using some of the same individuals, some of the same entities, many of the same methods as the tobacco industry's denial operation. These are persistent, highly motivated, very well-funded and complex information operations, not unlike a hostile intelligence service would run, and they are quite secretive. And we're now seeing a new form, I guess you'd call it election denial, happening around our country right now. So that's the background that I come at this from seeing, and I'm wondering if each of you see a difference between individual error and basically mass disinformation. Is there a difference between odd people with fringe views who offer personal opinions and an orchestrated plan of deliberate misinformation or disinformation that is driven by motivated interests, whether foreign or domestic?
Senator, I absolutely think that there's a difference, and you can see it in the patterns of use on the platforms. And in our policies and operations, we view these coordinated inauthentic behavior operations, networks of fake and sometimes combining with real accounts to push out a message, but make it seem like it's coming from a different place than it is, or might be more popular than it is. This is what we saw the Internet Research Agency out of Russia do in 2016. And since then, a number of other governments and private organizations, including some companies like what you've mentioned, have engaged in this behavior. Now, the good news is that I think that the industry has generally gotten its systems to be a lot more sophisticated to defend against that in the last several years. It's a combination of AI systems that we've built to find networks of accounts that aren't really behaving quite the way that a normal person would, coupled with large numbers of content reviewers, sometimes with expertise in counterterrorism or counterintelligence, and then some signal sharing, whether it's with the intelligence community, law enforcement, different groups that have expertise in different areas, and with other tech platforms. But this is a big effort on I think all of our sides to make sure that we can defend against this kind of interference, and I think we are getting better and better at it.
Well, let me encourage you to persist. As you know, the last time you were here, you were asked about advertising paid for on Facebook denominated in rubles, which was not a very sophisticated scheme to be able to penetrate, but Facebook was unable to penetrate it, and your upgrade from that original setup was simply to allow a shell corporation to intermediate between the real actor and not. So I encourage you to continue to try to make sure that real voices are what are heard on Facebook. Mr. Dorsey, let me turn to you and ask you the same question in the context of bots. Brown University recently did a study that showed that about 25% of all tweets about climate change are generated by bots. Most of them obviously push out climate denial, as I described that operation. How is Twitter's capacity to identify a bot as opposed to a real customer?
Well, to build off your previous question, I do think there is a difference, as Mark said, and I do think there's a there are many coordinated campaigns to manipulate public conversation, to divide people all around the world, to confuse and generally to distract. And we do have policies and enforcement to prevent as much of this as possible. It is a growing threat, and it shows no signs of slowing down. Bots are one way that entities do this. Sometimes it may look like a bot, but it's actually a human that is organized with other humans for a particular agenda. So it is challenging. We are doing work right now to better identify bots on our service.
Let me just interject, Mr. Dorsey, real quick. As a baseline proposition, do you agree that a bot does not deserve a voice on your platform, that it should be actual people and organizations?
I don't agree with that as a high level. I think we should be labeling bots so that people have greater context for what they're interacting with.
Fair enough.
There are plenty of bots on our service that provide a valuable function, and I wouldn't want to take that away.
Let me ask both of you, and maybe you can supplement this with the answer in writing for the record, because my time is getting short and this is a complicated question. But the question is, when does it matter to Twitter and when does it matter to Facebook to know who the actual entity is who is using your platform? Let me start with you, Mr. Dorsey, since Mr. Zuckerberg went first last time. And you can defer to a written answer if you like, because my time's running very short.
We'll add to this conversation with a written answer, but I do believe that pseudonymity is important. We have seen its usefulness with activists and with whistleblowers, and I think that is critical. But certainly there are times, and it's judged by a severity of potential outcomes, where we need to dig into identity and take actions.
We'll follow up with that, and let me just ask you, since my time has expired, Mr. Zuckerberg, to respond, or have your organization respond in writing. Thank you.